Most people don't live their lives. They perform them. Day after day, they contort themselves into roles the world has written for them, chasing validation, sacrificing peace, silencing the parts of themselves they fear the world won't accept. I've watched it in rulers, soldiers, philosophers, and I've seen it in my own reflection. We measure ourselves by how seamlessly we fit the mold, how quietly we carry the expectations placed upon us. But there is a hidden sickness in this, one the world rarely speaks of, the slow, invisible decay of the self beneath the mask. And the tragedy, most don't even notice it happening, because the world rewards performance. It praises your obedience to the script, but it never asks you who you truly are beneath it all. I've learned, though not easily, that the greatest rebellion is choosing yourself, not the version of you shaped by applause, nor the one sculpted from rejection, but the quiet, unedited self that existed before the world got loud. Choosing yourself is not comfort, it is confrontation. It is staring into the mirror of your own mind and seeing the shadows you've buried, the fears that drive your ambition, the doubts that dictate your relationships, the unspoken pain you carry like armor. Most avoid that mirror. They drown it in noise, distractions, endless chasing of titles, of admiration, of belonging. But I've come to understand, much like the wise man I spoke with over wine, that the mind is layered. There are parts we proudly display, and parts we exile into the dark. But those exiled pieces, they never disappear. They govern from the shadows, influencing every choice, every reaction, every quiet ache of dissatisfaction. To choose yourself is to call those parts home, to integrate the fears, the doubts, the forgotten truths, not to erase them, but to reclaim your wholeness. The world calls this selfish, difficult, rebellious. But I've found, as Marcus understood, that no empire, external or internal, can stand divided against itself. To deny the self is to fracture your foundation, but to face the full landscape of your being, the light and the dark, is to become immovable. You stop performing, you start living, and that terrifies the world, because a person rooted in their wholeness cannot be controlled. Most will never taste that kind of freedom. They will chain themselves to routines, to expectations, to the illusion that belonging requires sacrifice of the self. But understand this, the longer you abandon your truth, the heavier the consequences become. Your body grows weary from the weight of pretending. Your mind fractures under the strain of contradiction. Your spirit rebels in subtle ways, sleepless nights, restless ambition, a gnawing sense that no amount of success ever feels like enough. That discomfort isn't weakness, it's a signal. It's the part of you you've silenced, banging on the walls of your carefully constructed identity, begging to be acknowledged. I have learned to listen to that unrest, not to fear it, because beneath that discomfort is the invitation to come home to yourself, to choose your wholeness over their approval, to risk being misunderstood in exchange for finally understanding yourself. And yes, they will resist you. They will label your boundaries as arrogance, your clarity as coldness, your peace as detachment. But here's the truth. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. You are not here to carry their projections, their fears, their assumptions. You are here to carry your truth boldly, quietly, without apology. And when you do, when you refuse to abandon yourself one more day, you become untouchable. The noise fades, the opinions blur, the masks fall away, and what remains is you, whole, unedited, free. But choosing yourself is not a single moment. It is a practice, a daily returning to what is real beneath the performance. You will forget. You will drift back into the old roles, the old patterns, the craving for applause disguised as belonging. But every time you feel that quiet ache, the one that whispers, "This isn't me," that is your invitation to return. You must meet yourself again and again, just as you must meet your fears, your flaws, your forgotten dreams, without judgment. I've found that true peace is not the absence of discomfort. It is the ability to sit with discomfort and no longer let it define you. Your doubts, your shadows, your hidden pain, they are not signs of weakness. They are signs that you are still alive beneath the mask, that there is still a self within you, waiting to be chosen. And the moment you stop abandoning that self, the moment you refuse to betray your truth to win their approval, is the moment you stop merely surviving and begin living. And once you begin living, the mind itself shifts. You no longer see discomfort as the enemy, you recognize it as the guide, that gnawing ache, that restless dissatisfaction. It's not failure, it's your unconscious, your forgotten self calling you home. Most people never hear that call because they drown it in distractions, in their ambition, in their relationships, in endless noise. But I've learned that the quietest voices within us often carry the deepest truth, the parts of you you've hidden, the fears, the doubts, the imperfections. Those are not weaknesses to be erased, they are truths to be reclaimed. Integration, as the wise have always known, is not erasing what is dark, but holding the dark and the light together in one unshakable whole. When you do that, the opinions of others no longer hold power, their rejection no longer shatters you, their misunderstanding no longer defines you. You remain centered, whole, sovereign, and that, I have found, is the rarest freedom in this world. But the path of returning to yourself is rarely linear. Some days you will feel whole, other days fractured. Some moments you will speak your truth boldly, others you will feel the old fear pulling you back into silence. That does not mean you've failed, that means you're human. I have seen the greatest thinkers, the most disciplined warriors, crumble beneath the weight of self-betrayal, only to rise again, each time stronger, clearer, more whole. Because every time you choose yourself, no matter how small the act, you reclaim a piece of your soul lost to the noise. You remember that peace is not given by the world, it is remembered within you. You remember that worth is not earned through obedience, but uncovered through authenticity. And most importantly, you remember that you were never meant to live this life as a performance. You were meant to live as you are, flawed, whole, evolving, and completely your own. But here's the part most overlooked. Choosing yourself is not an escape from pain. It's the beginning of understanding it. You don't bypass your insecurities, you confront them. You don't avoid rejection, you transcend it. The moment you choose yourself is the moment you take responsibility for the fragments of your being you've hidden, denied, or neglected. And yes, it will challenge every belief you built around needing their approval to feel worthy. But let me tell you, when you realize you are the only one who can grant yourself acceptance, you become free in ways the world cannot comprehend. You stop asking for permission to be whole. You stop waiting for applause to validate your existence. You simply live, boldly, unapologetically, as the person you were always meant to be. And when that happens, everything changes. Your relationships evolve, stripped of shallow expectations. Your ambitions transform, no longer rooted in proving your worth, but in expressing your truth. You stop chasing and you start creating, not to be seen, but to be fulfilled. You no longer crave applause because you are finally heard by the only voice that ever mattered, your own. And with that inner alignment comes an unshakable peace. Not the fleeting peace of comfort zones or easy victories, but the profound peace of knowing you are living in integrity with your essence. It is the kind of peace that no rejection can dismantle, no judgment can fracture, no external chaos can unsettle. It is the rarest form of power, born not from control, but from complete ownership of self. Most will never taste it because they fear the discomfort of walking away from the roles, the performances, the carefully curated masks. But for those who dare, those who choose themselves relentlessly, life ceases to be a stage and becomes what it was always meant to be, real, raw, unfiltered, and entirely yours. The more you walk this path, the more you begin to see that the greatest act of courage is not climbing mountains or winning wars, It is facing yourself, to sit with your regrets, your doubts, your unhealed wounds, and to love them back into wholeness. This is the quiet work, the unseen victory, the transformation that cannot be broadcast but can be felt in the depth of your being. Others may never understand the battle you fight behind your eyes, but you will. And that is enough. Because when you live aligned with your truth, you no longer need their understanding. You no longer negotiate your worth. You no longer dilute your spirit to be palatable to others. You simply are, boldly, clearly, untouchably you. That is the work. That is the peace. And that, I have discovered, is what it means to finally choose yourself. And once you have tasted that alignment, once you've dared to touch the edges of your true self, you begin to realize the world outside may never change, but your relationship to it does. Their chaos, no longer yours. Their confusion, no longer yours. Their expectations, their projections, their attempts to pull you back into performance, none of it belongs to you. You carry your wholeness like quiet armor. You engage with life, but you are no longer owned by it. You feel, but you are no longer ruled by fleeting emotions. You walk among the noise, but your center remains still, untouchable, clear. That is what choosing yourself grants you, not escape, but power. Not isolation, but unshakable clarity. And in that clarity you finally begin to live, not as the world demands, but as your soul has always whispered, whole, steady, free. And here lies the deeper truth most never uncover. Once you remember the steady ground beneath your own existence, the world loses its leverage over your mind. You no longer chase worth because you remember you were born with it. You no longer cling to validation because you realize you validate yourself with every honest breath, every quiet act of self-return. And when the noise grows loud, when the distractions multiply, when the world begs you to perform again, you meet that moment not with fear, but with quiet defiance. You remain rooted in the only thing that has ever been truly yours, your being, your clarity, your wholeness. And in that, you find the rarest liberation, the freedom to live untouched by the chaos, unwavering in your peace, and relentlessly aligned with your truth. And when you live from that alignment, you discover something else. Your presence alone becomes permission for others to do the same, without preaching, without proving. Simply by being whole, you remind others of their own forgotten wholeness. You become the quiet invitation, a mirror reflecting what has always lived within them, waiting to be chosen. And in that, the ripple begins. One awakened mind begets another. One untouchable spirit inspires another. And soon, the noise of the world grows quiet, not because it changes, but because those who remember themselves no longer fuel it. That is how you change the world, not by force, but by returning to yourself so completely that your very existence becomes the rebellion. A life lived untethered, unapologetic, unshakably whole. That is the revolution. That is the peace. That is the legacy of those who dare to finally and fully choose themselves. And when you understand that your wholeness is not given by the world, but remembered within, an entirely new relationship with life begins to unfold. You stop bargaining with your existence. You stop diluting your voice to soothe their discomfort. You stop fragmenting yourself to fit into spaces that were never built for your truth. You simply stand, whole, centered. And in that stillness, the illusion of control begins to crack. You realize most of the world's chaos is performance. Most arguments, distractions, competitions, endless pursuits of status or validation are desperate attempts to outrun the discomfort of being alone with oneself. But once you have chosen yourself, truly chosen, you no longer fear that solitude. You welcome it. You cultivate it. You begin to crave the quiet, not as an escape, but as a sanctuary. Because in that quiet, stripped of noise, stripped of expectation, stripped of the endless need to perform. You meet yourself, and you realize most of the fears you carried were borrowed. Most of the doubts whispered in your mind were echoes from those who never faced their own. Most of the limitations you believed were never yours to begin with. They were inherited, absorbed, recycled, fragments of a collective fear passed down like a worn-out script. But choosing yourself is burning that script. And when you burn the script, you finally write your own. The sentences of your life no longer dictated by their expectations, but by your alignment. Your choices reflect your essence, not your conditioning. Your boundaries are no longer walls, they are invitations to meet you fully, without distortion, without masks. And yes, some will walk away when you do this. They were never drawn to your truth, only to the version of you that served their comfort. Let them go, because those who remain, those who rise beside you, will be the ones who have chosen themselves too. And together, you create the rarest kind of bond, not one built on performance, but on raw, unfiltered, sovereign connection.
But let me be clear. This path is not romantic. It is not wrapped in applause. Choosing yourself means shedding illusions. It means dismantling false belonging. It means grieving the version of you that chased validation, because that version believed belonging required abandonment of the self. But real belonging, it never demands your silence. It never punishes your boundaries. It never asks you to perform, to dilute, to fracture. Real belonging begins the moment you return to yourself, fully, fiercely, relentlessly. And when you live from that place, the noise of the world begins to sound different. The praise, you recognize it as fleeting. The criticism, you no longer wear it like armor. The expectations, you let them pass like wind through an open door. And in that space, where your mind no longer fractures to please the world, peace emerges, not as a fleeting moment, but as a foundation built on remembering. You are not here to perform worthiness. You are not here to collect applause as evidence of your value. You are not here to betray your spirit in exchange for shallow approval. You are here to be whole, to be real, to be untouchable in your peace. And the beauty of this, every time you return to yourself, despite fear, despite rejection, despite misunderstanding, your foundation strengthens, your clarity sharpens, your authenticity deepens, and soon you realize nothing external can threaten the internal empire you've built. That is choosing yourself. That is the rebellion. That is the revolution. But let me remind you, this rebellion is quiet. It doesn't shout from rooftops. It doesn't demand recognition. The world is too easily distracted by spectacle, by noise, by those loud in their performance, yet hollow in their being. But when you truly choose yourself, your life becomes the quietest kind of revolution. You walk differently, not with arrogance, but with unshakable peace. You listen differently, not to judge, but to understand. You love differently, not to fill a void, but as an overflow of your completeness. And the world feels this even if it can't explain it. Some will be drawn to your clarity, magnetized by your authenticity, craving the same permission to be themselves. Others, they'll resist it. Your wholeness will agitate their fragmentation. Your peace will threaten their dependence on chaos. Your presence, simply by existing, will hold up a mirror. And not everyone is ready to see themselves reflected so clearly. But that is not your burden to carry. You are not here to manage their discomfort. You are here to embody your truth so relentlessly that it reminds them they can do the same when they're ready. And here's what most never realize. The more you live this way, the more life meets you there. The right people, the ones who crave depth over performance, who trade superficiality for sincerity, they find you. The right opportunities, the ones aligned with your essence, not your mask, they arrive. The right moments of growth, the ones that sharpen you, refine you, elevate you, they unfold. It's not magic, it's alignment. It's the natural result of living from your center rather than their expectations.
You begin to understand that life is not about conquering the world, it's about mastering the quiet battlefield within. And when you do, everything external becomes secondary. You stop being seduced by applause. You stop being dismantled by criticism. You stop being derailed by rejection. You move, steady, whole, untouchable. Because once you've chosen yourself, truly chosen, you realize there was never anything outside of you that could complete you or diminish you or define you. You were whole all along. But let me tell you, this legacy isn't built in grand moments alone. It's sculpted in the small, quiet choices made when no one is watching. The moment you decline what doesn't align with your soul. The moment you breathe through discomfort instead of collapsing into old patterns. The moment you protect your energy, your time, your peace, without explanation. Those are the moments that construct an untouchable life, not one absent of struggle, but one deeply rooted in self-sovereignty. And the more you walk this path, the more you realize choosing yourself isn't about isolation, it's about discernment. You no longer hand your energy to the undeserving. You no longer explain your worth to those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer audition for belonging in spaces that cannot hold your fullness. And when you stop doing that, your energy consolidates, your focus sharpens, your life simplifies. And in that simplicity, you reclaim a clarity most people spend their lives running from. Because here's the quiet truth. Complexity is often distraction disguised as importance. Most people overcomplicate their lives to avoid the discomfort of meeting themselves. But when you choose yourself, you strip away the excess. You burn the roles. You dissolve the illusions. What remains is raw, unfiltered being, imperfect, evolving, human, but real. And in that realness, you remember that your peace was never contingent on their approval, their applause, their permission. It was always waiting in the space between the noise. This is not a path for the faint of heart. You will lose things, roles, relationships, identities. But what you gain cannot be measured in words. You gain your center. You gain your integrity. You gain your life, unperformed, undiluted, untouchably yours. And when that rebellion takes root within you, it doesn't just change your world, it reshapes your perception of time itself. You stop rushing, you stop chasing moments like they're slipping through your fingers. You begin to experience the present not as a fleeting checkpoint between achievements, but as the only place where life ever truly unfolds. And in that stillness, the game changes. You see the patterns, the endless cycles of striving, doubting, performing, that most are trapped in. You recognize how easily the world seduces people into outsourcing their peace to the next promotion, the next relationship, the next shallow success. But you no longer play that game. You watch it, you witness it, but you are no longer owned by it. And when you walk through life with that clarity, people will notice, even if they can't name it. Some will be drawn to you, others will be unsettled by you, because when you choose yourself, you disrupt the illusion for everyone around you. You expose the falsehood of pretending, of conforming, of silencing your essence to belong. But you also illuminate the alternative, a life built on your own terms, shaped by your own truth, held together by nothing but your unwavering commitment to your own wholeness. And though it may seem subtle at first, the shift is undeniable. You wake differently, you speak differently, you love differently, not with desperation, but with quiet certainty that you no longer need to fracture yourself to be worthy of this human experience. And that is when the real freedom begins. You no longer move through life performing survival. You embody living. You no longer chase validation. You stand rooted in your enoughness. You no longer abandon yourself for approval. You become the home you've been searching for all along. We hope this reflection in the voice of Marcus Aurelius gave you more than just words, but a reminder of your own strength. If you found something here that stayed with you, imagine how many others might need to hear it too. Sharing this message helps build a space for people like you, people seeking clarity, resilience, peace. And if you're ready for more, join us here. Click the subscribe button and absorb the knowledge of this great man to use in your own life. God bless.